This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
The Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee has come up with a number of suggestions around tax reforms and most recently a way to cut down the cost of collecting taxes. The chairman of the committee, Taiwo Oyedele, had stated that the current cost of collection is as high as 35% in some states. And Mr. Oyedele has also stated that plans are afoot to restructure the Federal Inland Revenue Service as the Nigeria Revenue Service and centralize the collection of taxes and levies under the restructured Revenue Collection Service. Joining us this morning is tax compliance expert Titilayo Fowokon. Mrs. Fowokon, good morning and thank you for joining us on the conversation.
Good morning. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. To start with, what is your reaction to these latest proposals out of the Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee?
Okay, thank you very much. I think in the first place, the work of the Fiscal Policy Reform Committee is going to be a very landmark achievement in this administration. And some of the proposals they've come up with have made given some relief to business environment. Looking at the recent publication that we have in terms of the structure of the revenue service, what we're looking at is having something similar to what we have in some other jurisdictions, considering our size, and that it's going to be something that will make it easier for taxpayers to know who they are dealing with. The only thing is that whether, based on the way we are structured, we will be able to get the buy-in of the governors, because what that means is that all the state internal revenue service will be departments under the federal and national revenue service. It's a structure that works in different countries, and which I believe it's also possible that it will work here, provided we have the political will and also the support. They've been doing quite a lot in terms of changes to the Nigerian tax system, and the effect is yet to be felt, but I believe that there is still room for improvement, and there's room for more reforms that would make the lives of taxpayers better.
So, Ms. Fowokon, I want to go back to what you said about the states and buying their collaboration to these reforms. I know that the committee has been going around the country doing stakeholder meetings. However, there are questions on whether the plans for these reforms should actually have been carried out alongside the states as opposed to just a presidential and a central system. If they don't get the buy-in of the states, is this wasted effort?
Well, without the buy-in of the states, the efforts that they are making would not show forth. And that's why it's necessary for the states to understand. Currently we are having issues around multiple taxation, which is, we see cases whereby taxes you're collecting at the federal, you're having a replica in a different name happening at different state levels. So the states are going to look at this, if what would be this impact. And some of the things that they are proposing is to have a single-digit tax number of taxes in the country. The implication of this is that the number of tax collectible by the states are going to have to be shrink into that single-digit number of taxes, because currently the states have the highest number of taxes that they're collecting. Some are like replica of income tax, some are implications of some other form of taxes that federal already collects, and this is a critical issue for taxpayers. So their buy-in is very, very important for them to understand. The Joint Tax Board role will also have to be very strong in this regard, because the Joint Tax Board is what joins all the state revenue services and the Federal Inland Revenue Service together to be able to have a voice. They'll be making some movements in this regard, having some things around even some of these multiple taxes. Joint Tax are coming up to say these are the taxes that should be collected. When you collect in this state, it shouldn't go to another state. They should not collect it again in another state. That we've seen, but the effect of this is not even forthcoming. So we are hoping that the state governors will collaborate with the federal and see this structure can work for everybody.
So just as we wrap up, the most recent suggestion that has been made is to see the cost of collecting taxes essentially drop to about 1% of what it is today. And part of the suggestions is around reforming the FIRS, making it become what will be called the Nigeria Revenue Service. And the Nigeria Customs Service is expected to be put, or has been suggested, as a department under this Nigeria Revenue Service. What sort of challenges do you see, obstacles to actualizing what seems like an ambitious suggestion and plan at the moment?
Yeah, if you look at the way currently the tax authorities operate versus our customs operate, though we see customs as part of taxes, indirect tax precisely, that means that the customs being subsumed under the Federal Revenue Service or under the Nigerian Revenue Service would now reduce some leakages that have been going on around the way our custom procedures are managed, as well as within the cost of collection and enforcement. Like I said, everything that is being proposed has to do with cooperation and collaboration. If the agencies see themselves as one and they see that their work is interrelated, the tendency that they will accept is there. But if you also look at the human factor there, it means that the Controller General of Customs is not going to be subjected under whoever is the chairman or whoever is the overseer of the Nigerian Revenue Service, and the reporting would also change. Then the human factor may come in. But if we look at it as the Nigeria project, see it as one Nigeria, what are we trying to achieve? We're trying to achieve maximum revenue collection. We're trying to achieve reduced in leakages. We're trying to achieve reduced cost of compliance. Because when you have one body you're dealing with, like for instance, the taxpayer, if I'm dealing with one revenue service and I'm just going to go from one place to the other, fine. It reduces my headache of dealing with 36 states and the federal and dealing with the customs on the other side. So I'm able to say, once I enter the revenue service, I can get to each of these departments to do what I'm going to do and come out. Now, if they will now talk about the technology part of it, if all these are interrelated, and I can sit in my office and do everything I need to do without having to step out, and I can do it online effectively, it makes even the cost of compliance reduce and makes it easier. So, but the key thing is how it work. Would there be buy-in of all the stakeholders? If we get that, then it's a good thing we're looking at. Then secondly, sustainability. Is it going to be something that we transcend beyond the 4 years of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, or something that after his tenure, some other people will say we are collapsing it? What we see in Nigeria is that we have policy somersaults. You get a policy this time, by the time I finish my tenure, if somebody finishes tenure as the president, another person comes and overrules those things, and we start all over again. So if they're seeing this as a project that would be sustainable and will continue, then it's something that will be good for everybody. The buy-in, the cooperation of all the respective bodies is what really might be where the challenge will come from. And getting so many agents, the number of us of customs that we have to come under a national revenue service, all the states come under national revenue service, I see it as a very challenging task, but if they're able to achieve it, then we'll give them thumbs up.
Well, Ms. Fowokon, thank you so much for your analysis on this conversation. We appreciate your time. Our guest is tax compliance expert Titilayo Fowokon, speaking to us on the proposals that have been made in terms of tax reforms in the country. Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee has suggested that, or rather has proposed, reforms that will see the cost of collecting taxes drop to 1%, and also proposed that the FIRS, the Federal Inland Revenue Service, be restructured as the Nigeria Revenue Service, which will see the Nigeria Customs Service become a department underneath this new service. Of course, we wait to see which of these reforms and suggestions are undertaken by the federal government and how it will reshape the tax landscape in the country.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.